Okay, there's a couple of franchise statistics that I love talking to experts such as yourself about. I'm curious to get your feedback. You know, this one statistic that what is it? 84% of all franchisors never get to 100 units. And I'm not caught up in the number of franchises that are sold. We all know it's all about becoming royalty sufficient and sustainability for the long haul. But you know, 100 is the big number since most franchisors never get there. What do you think? Why do you think most franchisors stall out and they don't even get close to 100 units? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, I don't know the industry research, so I can only speak of my own experience observing the industry. I think it's a few things. I think it is, those who don't make it to revenue self-sufficiency and what does that result in for them. I think there are those who maybe they've picked the wrong category, the wrong segment. Maybe they've failed on the execution. Maybe they had early success and were able to scale to multiple units and then fall down on the execution. I think to grow a successful franchise brand, you really do need to be best in class, and that's a moving target. And we can never rest on our laurels. I think that there are oftentimes franchisors, maybe they started with successful corporate locations and then decided to grow through franchising, who fail to build the strong systems of support. And maybe you end up with unhappy franchisees. If you've got unhappy franchisees, you're not going to grow a franchise system because your candidates are going to reach out to them for validations. And if they're not hearing positive feedback, you're stuck. So I think those are some of the key reasons. I also wondered, as I reflected on this question, franchising is not easy in many ways. Franchisees they have a lot at stake. They're choosing to give up careers and become entrepreneurs sometimes. They're making investments that have significant financial impact on their families. They are not always showing up to their interactions with their franchisor in their best way.
Mm.
So for our team, we often have to deal with franchisees who are stressed, who are maybe behaving badly. We try to deal with that, but mostly we try to put up with it and know that it's not personal. But I do wonder if there's some people who just don't want to put up with that anymore. I wonder if that's a cause too of that.
I think that's very possible. I think the reason why most people franchise their concept, let's face it, is the founder is looking to expand their business. And when they expand their business through franchising, they quickly find out that franchise owners want to have a voice, and the founders or the CEO, the brand president, whoever it is that started that franchise, isn't typically accustomed to getting feedback or needing to get input from people.
Yeah.
And they grew their business. They forgot that franchising is really a two-way street. And I think that it is an expectation is one of the problems. And you have to quickly find out as a founder that you have one job, and that is to make your franchisees, help them become successful. That's it. You're no longer in the blow dry bar business or lash business or whatever. You are in the business of helping people be successful. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of founders they're not prepared for that. And maybe they don't even have the skill set for that. They have the skill set to grow their business, which kind of leads me to something you said earlier. I think that philosophically, you and I think agree on something because I heard you say it earlier. And that is you chose not to have company-owned locations. I'm not against having company-owned locations at all. I think it's great to have a couple. I have a big problem with having a lot of corporate-owned locations and having a dual strategy. I think it's extremely difficult to have two sides of the house running. And I've seen a lot of people try it and fail. And I've seen it become a tearing of fabric of the culture when you have too many company-owned locations and franchisees, and the franchise owners are not sure who are you really rooting for, and are you really all in on franchising?
Yeah.
Are you and I on the same page sort of on that? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that, like you, I'm not opposed to having a small number of corporate locations. I think a lot of franchisors will use that model successfully for testing new things or making sure that they understand the business really well. The challenge is that you have to have the team set up for that. So from time to time, we have to step in and take back a location, as all franchisors do. And I have to be honest, we're not good at it because we have people doing it sort of in between their to-do list items that are part of their real day job. We don't have a dedicated team available to run locations that we are now responsible for running. So I think if you're going to go the corporate location route, you do have to look out for that conflict of interest or even a perceived conflict of interest. And you have to know that you've got the team to successfully manage it.
Yeah, we kind of did the same thing. Well, first off, we did also try to save a location and plug somebody in at least temporarily in. For us, there was one story where we had a franchise in Portland, Oregon that was actually a successful franchise owner, and we're in the Tampa Bay area, so all the way across the country. And this franchise owner was successful, but there was a lot of personal issues, and so he basically just was closing down. This is back in like 2009, and we took over. And it made it really challenging for us because we wanted to make sure the location was operating really well. So we put somebody in the business there to run it until we can eventually sell it. But about 10 years into us running our business overall, we decided we were going to start opening company-owned locations as a dual strategy, because we felt the only way we were opening locations was obviously our marketing efforts in a specific region of the country. And we saw that there were great markets that we just weren't getting an uptick of inquiries from, no matter how much we marketed directly in that area. And what happened for us, Vanessa, is that our revenues soared, but so did our expenses. We were hemorrhaging. Our net income on our company locations was struggling because we had to put so many people in place. Mm-hmm. And it was a lot of work, and more than a lot of work. I felt like it was, for us, I know a lot of people have done it well, it was a distraction for us in the home office. That's the truth.
That makes perfect sense to me. And I would say, the reason when we bought Blo Blow Dry Bar, the reason we said let's grow through franchising instead of corporate locations was partly because of our experience with the children's concept and feeling that conflict of interest, but also real capital constraints. To open bricks and mortar locations is expensive, and one of the advantages of scaling through franchising is that your capex is low. But I want to go back to something else you were talking about there, that notion that you exist as a franchisor to set your franchisees up for success. I shared with you that I joined our corporate office later along our journey. It was about 10 years ago. I think we were rounding up at the time to say we had about 40 locations. And when I got here, I had to learn franchising from scratch. I kind of knew it as an investor, but hadn't been an active investor the way my husband had been in growing our business in those days. So the thing that I realized early on was that we are in the customer service business, and our customer is our franchisee. And that is how we have oriented our team here ever since. And that is what I tell our candidates. All we do at Blo's head office all day, every day, is think about how can we do a better job of setting our franchisees up for success? What resources, what educational opportunities, what tweaks to our service mix or our pricing structure or what have you. It's a process of continual evolution, and it really stems from recognizing that the people who have chosen to partner with you have given you a great privilege and a great responsibility.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which kind of leads me to, I said there was two statistics that bothered me. And one of them was the 84% that don't get to 100 units. And the second one, which we've kind of answered, is the reason why in the world are there 400 new franchisors every year and 400 going out? Like, we're not getting anywhere as an industry. We sold the same number of franchisors for the 20 something years I've been involved. And I think it comes down to really what you said too. It's the expectation, who you putting first.
Yeah.
And that becomes a challenge for a lot of people. I don't think franchising is it's not what they expected when they go in.
Yeah, look, I think like you'd say about so many things, franchising isn't easy. If everything was so easy, lots of people would do it. And maybe lots of people jump into franchising and discover that maybe it isn't as easy as they thought, and maybe they aren't surrounding themselves with the people who have some expertise, and maybe they aren't attending the conferences and learning opportunities. I think also there's something else we haven't touched on that emerging franchisors need to think about, and that is the path of partnering with franchise sales organizations and brokers. And as an emerging franchisor, you can get scale quickly. You give up a lot of your economics because the franchise fee is by and large going to those third parties. And our industry is littered with the bodies of franchise systems that opened or sold, sorry, hundreds of locations and then realized that they couldn't get them open and needed to refocus. Sometimes they're refocusing because they realize that they have this limited resource in their head office team and they can't yet chew gum and walk at the same time.
Exactly.
And if they're not able to get these locations open, then you've got to stop selling. So I think a lot of franchisors just find themselves in that situation where maybe they've sold a lot, they've given away all the franchise fees to those third-party sales outfits, and then find themselves in a situation where they're not able to generate the recurring revenue stream that they were counting on quickly enough.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.